Hello and welcome to a Wednesday Live right here on the early line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination and consume everything all across the grid. He is Donnie Rightside, and I am Ben Stevens. We are here for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time, where DRS were 4 days out from Conference Championship Sunday. Again, we will prepare you for everything you need to know. The two matchups in the AFC and the NFC in the NFL's Final Four, still in the hunt for that Super Bowl championship in this 2023 NFL season. The coaching carousel starting to spin. When might the floodgates open around the National Football League? And Donnie, we're at the halfway point of this 2023-24 NBA season, but the intensity has already ramped up. A chaotic day around the association in the NBA with a shocking head coaching move out in Milwaukee.
Yeah, forget about the coaching carousel, Ben, in the NFL. How about the coaching carousel now taking flight here in the NBA? And also, just going over some news and notes here, Ben. You know, we go season to season, and the season winds down. The NFL Super Bowl Sunday is just about upon us here. I just saw in my notes here, February 14th. Most would say, hey, man, look at that. That's Valentine's Day. Not your boy DRS here, because, again, the wife doesn't watch the show. That's pitches and catches, baby. How about that?
I had no idea where you were going when you started that soliloquy. That was really, really good. Yeah. Donnie's wife, we apologize that you don't watch the show, but just it's probably a good thing that you do not. Goodness gracious, still live national television. Anyway, so as we keep it going here on I think so. On this Wednesday on the early line, let's make sure before we dive into the news and notes, we welcome in our SportsGrid radio audience. Sirius XM Channel 159, all of our radio terrestrial affiliates now in the fold as well. He is Donnie, I am Ben. In a coaching change-up yesterday in Milwaukee, a shocker in Adrian Griffin's first year at the helm of the Bucks organization. They're not 13-30. They're 30-13, second best record in the Eastern Conference, tied for the second best mark in all of the association, Donnie, and yet not good enough in Milwaukee. Adrian Griffin is out as the Bucks head coach after only 43 games, and in an advisory role, enter Glenn Doc Rivers, who is projected to be the next head coach of this Bucks franchise.
We'll get into this a little bit more in the next segment, but when most people saw this come down, absolutely shocking. Kevin and I were on the radio yesterday on Moneyline when it happened. He couldn't believe it. But for me, I take a look at this situation and go, that is a sign of an absolutely healthy organization. It's about championships. Your window is right now, Ben. And if you feel you don't have the coach that has enough gas here to get you over the finish line, you got to make the move now. I love the move. If the Bucks felt it wasn't the right move and they can say, you know what, we made a mistake, correct it now, and still have a chance to win a championship.
There have been some questions about the Bucks, no doubt. 30-13 straight up. Again, second best mark in the East, but a 3.5 game cushion behind the Boston Celtics, who they are competing with, because when Damian Lillard was acquired by Milwaukee right before camp got underway there in the state of Wisconsin, the Bucks were co-favorites to win the Eastern Conference and that NBA championship this year alongside the C's. They have moved back ever so slightly. Again, we will dive into the shocking news out of Milwaukee and what is next for the Bucks and their outlook for the remainder of 2023-24. But it's Rivals Week in the NBA, and we saw that in the Battle of L.A. last night. No LeBron James for the Lakers. The Clippers closed as a 9.5-point favorite, and they take care of business at home in downtown L.A. 127-116, the win for the Clippers. They had 6 players score in double figures, led by Kawhi Leonard, who had a team-high 25 points. Donnie, we've said it again. 8-10, the mark for L.A., that being the Clippers side at the end of November, 2 games below 500. From that point, a 20-4 record. The Clippers cover as a 9.5-point favorite against the Lakers.
Yeah, big offensive first half here for the Clippers, going 35 in the first quarter, 42 in the second to sort of exert their dominance in this game. It was one of those that we brought up yesterday. What was the key cog? LeBron James not playing in this basketball game. I thought the Clippers would win by margin, won by 11. Job well done. 28-14 now on the season.
22-13 against the spread as the favored side. The New York Knicks on a roll as well. They had to go across the East River to Brooklyn as the next borough to take on the Brooklyn Nets. last night, but no issue for New York. The Knicks pick up a victory over the Nets, 108-103. The line closed around 4.5. The Knickerbockers get the cover. They have won 10 of their last 12 games. In all 10 of those victories, the total has stayed under. That is New York Knicks basketball.
Man, was looking forward to this one in the fourth quarter, which I told you I like the Brooklyn Nets there, plus 4.5. You take that lead and you say, you know what? Let's just hold on at home. Maybe you lose the game, just not by 5 points, 108-103. It's a good victory for the Knicks. And since getting OG Anunoby, maybe one of those teams you got to watch out for now in the Eastern Conference.
10 of their last 12 games, under an 11 of the last 12. That's the way Tibbs wants them to play. They are ferocious on the defensive end. So after Joel Embiid goes off for 70 points and 18 rebounds, what does his counterpart in the NBA MVP race, Nikola Jokic, do to back it up last night? Well, he hits a dagger three with 6 seconds remaining in Indianapolis for the Nuggets to get a victory over Indiana, 114-109, and he has a 31-point triple-double. Jamal Murray adds in 31 of his own, and the Nugs get a victory in Indianapolis, 114-109.
Yeah, and also no Tyrese Halliburton there for the Indiana Pacers, which was one of those things we talked about yesterday. I like the Pacers at home, but we were anticipating Halliburton back in the lineup. He didn't play, but still pretty good effort there by the Pacers, only losing by 5 points. But you're right. When you have a superstar player out there like Jokic, you expect big things. And I remember you talking about it yesterday, a plus 165 price on a triple-double.
Yep.
Cha-ching!
Over his points prop as well, Nikola Jokic has scored 30 points in 3 consecutive games. Now to college basketball we go. An upset last night in Columbia. Lamont Paris has been the head coach of South Carolina for 2 seasons now in the SEC. And in the 2 matchups against Kentucky, Lamont Paris and the Gamecocks have reigned supreme. Last night in dominant fashion, winning by 17, 79-62 over Coach Calipari's Wildcats. A 79-62 win, Donnie, for South Carolina at home. They win outright as a 5.5-point underdog.
Great defense here. You hold Kentucky shooting-wise to 40%, but you also at home 48% from the floor, which included 46% from three-point range. That was a shellacking last night here. And the Kentucky Wildcats, hey, look, you're going to take some lumps on the road in the SEC. They took one last night.
Second SEC loss for Kentucky. Love the under last night, 154.5, because of that defense for South Carolina in the pace at which they play. NFL news, not a coach, but a new general manager, at least in Las Vegas, and a guy that knows the AFC West well. Tom Telesco, who was fired by the Chargers before the end of 2023, will be the new GM for the Raiders.
Yeah, let's try this again for the Raiders here. Don't take the television GMs here. Take a real GM in the NFL and move on with your franchise. I like the move by the Raiders here.
The 2024 Major League Baseball Hall of Fame class, Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, and Todd Helton. They're headed to Cooperstown. The Shocker in Milwaukee. Up next.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but he's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a Knicks fan. I feel bad for Obi Toppin. I mean, Obi Toppin was backing up Julius Randle, and then he got his opportunity. Indiana was playing great. Didn't play deep. Brought him off the bench. And now they got Pascal Siakam, and now he's going into a free agent year. So Obi may be looking for a new home. But I do like that fast break if it's Halliburton with Obi and Siakam.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA. And they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories. But Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
A shocking development yesterday in the NBA out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The Bucks, a contender in the Eastern Conference, off to a 30-13 start past the midway point of this 2023-24 NBA season under a first-year head coach in Adrian Griffin. Let go of Adrian Griffin yesterday, despite being 17 games above 500, despite having the second best record in the Eastern Conference, despite having tied for that second best mark around the entirety of the NBA. There is a lot to get into here in this situation for the Bucks organization. A franchise that did not trust in the direction of their first-year head coach. A franchise that did not believe that Adrian Griffin was the right guy to lead them on the way to an NBA championship, to be that true contender, and understanding that it's championship or bust for this Milwaukee team. And despite all of that, Donnie, with a 30-13 record, I don't think anybody saw Adrian Griffin's dismissal coming yesterday.
No, I don't think we saw that because we're not used to coaches who just get started with a great start, get fired before the halfway point of the season or even before the All-Star break. So what were we anticipating yesterday, Ben, when this news came down? You know what? We see a Woj tweet out here, and you say to yourself, well, there's got to be a follow-up that says, like, the FBI raided the Milwaukee Bucks facility because that's the only reason why he would get fired, or like an Ime Udoka situation in Boston where some internal turmoil with some HR issues they couldn't cover up anymore, and you have to let the coach go. But we haven't gotten any of that. So the next thing up is, well, look, in the room, because I understand, and you can equate this sometimes to the NFL, maybe a Nick Sirianni situation in Philadelphia, 10-1 at the break. When you're saying, like, man, I don't know how they're 10-1, but they're flying by the seat of their pants. And you still had veteran players on the team go, you know what, Ben? I don't trust what we're hearing out here. Like, we're talented. That's why we're winning right now. But eventually, we're going to need our coach. And every time I get in the huddle and I hear that play call, I don't trust this play. Why are we calling this play? Same things can happen in Milwaukee and in basketball. You're not talking about a guy that's been around the league for decades as a head coach. You're talking about a first-time head coach in the first part of the season, where if you have guys like Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo going like, all right, coach, there's 30 seconds left in the game. What are you drawing up? We're drawing this up here? I don't know about this, coach. You sure about this play? You get a couple of those scenarios involved, and the next thing you know, Giannis Antetokounmpo and or Damian Lillard are going to ownership and going like, look, I like the guy, but if you want to win championships, is what I came here to do. And the same thing with Giannis, as you saw over the past 2 to 3 years, Ben, making his mark on that organization, saying, I might not sign long-term yet. Let me see the players you bring in. I don't care about the luxury tax. We're pressing it in now, and the Bucks have always done that. This stems from superstar players on the team not having trust in the head coach. That's why Adrian Griffin's out.
And that is a huge part of this conversation as well, because it's not a Milwaukee team running it back with Giannis. It's a Milwaukee team that went out right before the start of this preseason and got Damian Lillard to make his way to the Bucks. That was the first shocker. We thought Dame was going one place and one place only in the Eastern Conference. That was Miami. It turned out to be Milwaukee to play alongside Giannis. And Adrian Griffin, who spent the past 15 seasons in the NBA, a longtime assistant coach around the association, brought over Terry Stotts, who was Dame's head coach at the beginning of his run with the Blazers. And before the year got started, right before their preseason finale, reportedly there was a dust-up between Stotts and Griffin about the direction that Adrian Griffin had as a first-time head coach and his usage of Damian Lillard, his plan to incorporate Dame in this organization. Stotts left the team before the NBA season even got underway. But again, a 30-13 record. But, Donnie, we do things based on the odds here, right? That's how you truly evaluate how great a team is. If they are booked as a favorite in 41 of 43 games, of course they are expected to win a good majority of those basketball games. But when you're 15, 25, and 1 against the number, are you really hitting that peak? Are you really at that ceiling that it will take to get past the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers in the Eastern Conference postseason to play once again in an NBA Finals? And ultimately, that was the decision Milwaukee made yesterday as an organization.
And that's what the point was, to bring it up at the start of the show. And most people say, like, oh, boy, that sounds like dysfunction. That doesn't sound like dysfunction to me, Ben. That sounds like an organization that knows what it wants, another NBA championship, and aren't going to look at the bottom line and say, look, I don't know what his contract was, but let's just say it was mid-level contract in the NBA to be a head coach. 3 years, I don't know, $20 million. Oh, well, we cut him this early. We got to pay him all that money. Nonsense here. Your strike point is right now, and to admit a mistake right away shows the signs, once again, of a healthy organization. That's not saying give it some time, see what happens here. You know where you give it some time, see what happens? When you're a middling program here saying, you know what, I think this coach eventually will be good. Now, the funny part is you heard some of the rumblings behind the scenes saying, like, the general manager's like, well, we still think he's going to be a great head coach in the NBA. No, you don't. And number two, you made that decision saying, you know what, let's get a player-friendly guy in here. I think it'll work out. Maybe the players will come to it, and we'll see some signs of growth early in the season. It is kind of crazy, though. They have the second-best record, at least tied for the second-best record in the NBA, and are moving on from a head coach. But I love that here. That shows that Milwaukee is all in this year to win a championship, and I think that's healthy.
And again, that is the component of this as well. After acquiring Damian Lillard from the Trailblazers, the Bucks were booked as a co-favorite out east and a co-favorite to win the NBA championship this season with the Boston Celtics. We'll show you the odds in just a moment. The distinction is still very, very close. Less than $1 separates Milwaukee and Boston atop the Eastern Conference odds board, but Milwaukee has trailed Boston both in record, in wins, and from the odds outlook. So part of the reason this was so shocking and the developing story that has come out of this situation with the Bucks is not just the dismissal of Adrian Griffin after only 43 games this year and a 30-13 record, but because of one Doc Rivers, who was brought in to advise Adrian Griffin throughout the opening months of this NBA season and is now the guy that all the major stakeholders in Milwaukee reportedly want to be the next head coach of this Bucks team. Right now, Joe Prunty was named the interim head coach, but various reports have said the Bucks are circling in on Doc Rivers. Other reports late last night said that Doc Rivers has already been named the head coach in Milwaukee. They brought him in to advise, and then he pulls off the saboteur move to become the head coach of this Bucks organization.
It's pretty wild how it come to this point. And also, keep in mind, the Bucks probably could have had anybody they wanted as a head coach. Like, who's not going to want to come in and coach Giannis when you know maybe another big move like Damian Lillard could be coming down the path here? But the fact that it's Doc Rivers, again, being a Philadelphia guy, makes me chuckle a little bit, because in the biggest moments when you need a coach to draw up plays and sort of fend off, hey, guys will be okay, Doc has been known for the collapse in the NBA. So we'll see how it works out. But also yesterday, the timelines were crazy when you read about this. Okay, they fired their coach. Prunty's going to be the interim coach here. And then Woj started tweeting out stuff like, Doc's the number one target. He should be their next coach. And like 30 minutes later, by the way, I haven't talked to Doc yet, but they still like Doc and they think he's going to be his head coach. So a little bit of a wild ride yesterday, but in an off season where you could have had your pick of the litter of guys that would probably get there. I don't know, a la a Nick Nurse who went to the Philadelphia 76ers and is fitting in nicely here. It's funny that you're going to wind up saying, hey, you know what? Doc might be the best decision that we've ever made heading down the stretch. At least the players will like him. It's an interesting scenario nonetheless.
Yeah, it certainly is. So Milwaukee right now, again, second best record in the Eastern Conference, 30-13. Updated win total, 54.5. Those Eastern Conference odds plus 220. They actually moved back slightly from where they were just a week ago. It was a 2-1 number. But as you compare Milwaukee currently to the Boston Celtics, and really that is the race in the Eastern Conference, it is less than $1 of difference between the C's, plus 135, and the Bucks at plus 220. As we shared yesterday, Donnie, 3 teams at a 5-1 number or less. The Bucks, the Celtics, and the Sixers all contending for that Eastern Conference crown.
Yes, certainly. And it's going to be a close finish all the way through, but it'll be interesting to see like this big record. And also, they started out with one of the easier schedules in the NBA. Let's say Doc gets in there and it's a little turbulent waters over the next month. I can't wait to read into this one, Ben.
Of course, Doc Rivers has stumbled in the biggest games. He has a 16-33 playoff record when his team has already won 3 games in a postseason series. That's not good. More around the association next.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a Knicks fan. I feel bad for Obi Toppin. I mean, Obi Toppin was backing up Julius Randle, and then he got his opportunity. Indiana was playing great, didn't play deep, brought him off the bench, and now they got Pascal Siakam, and now he's going into a free agent year. So Obi may be looking for a new home. But I do like that fast break if it's Halliburton with Obi and Siakam.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA. And they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories, but Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
What a chaotic day it was in the association. The Bucks making the head coaching change, the dismissal of Adrian Griffin, and potentially welcoming in Doc Rivers. All of that, Donnie, as we have reached the midway point of this 2023-24 NBA season. That's why the intensity has ramped up, because the Bucks see on the horizon a postseason push where they need a guy they believe will guide them in the direction to an Eastern Conference crown in an NBA championship. It is also Rivals Week in the NBA. Some of that bad blood with your neighbors that are pretty close. That includes in Brooklyn, the Nets hosting the Knicks last night inside the Barclays Center. Brooklyn closed as a 4-point underdog, and the New York Knicks are on that upswing as well in the Eastern Conference. Make that 10 wins in the last 12 games for New York. Last night in Brooklyn, the final score, 108-103. The Knickerbockers cover as a 4-point road favorite. And Donnie, in this 10-game win streak, out of their last 12, I should say, the Knicks have gone under in all 10 of those victories, under in 11 of their last 12 games in total.
That's what Tibbs likes. You know what else Tibbs likes? A 30-point performance by Julius Randle and also Jalen Brunson in this game, and a nice comeback victory by winning the fourth quarter by 14 points. Now, this might be an anomaly, Ben, in an NBA game. You take a look at the Knicks and what they shot from the field, 46%. It's fine. 35% from three-point line, 94% from the free throw line, which included 18 of 19 free throws. You go down on the box score to the Brooklyn Nets. How about this, Ben? What if you saw this? 4 of 5 from the free throw line here. Barely getting attempts here. That's quality defense from the Knicks, not fouling and giving away the easy shots from the charity stripe to hold the Nets to under 105 points. That's a good victory here. And again, I thought yesterday the right move, the public play, obviously was the Knicks, and it won. Congratulations. But I like the Nets. And again, if you would tell me that the Nets would have the lead entering into the fourth quarter, I would have taken that. But that's a great defensive performance to hold the Nets under 20 points in the fourth quarter and come away with that victory.
That's Tom Thibodeau basketball, baby. OG Anunoby, who was acquired by Toronto early on in January, has been there for all 10 of these wins in their last 12 games. The OG effect for the New York Knicks, who are now 17-9 against the spread, booked as a favorite this year. One of 7 teams that booked as a favorite has a cover percentage of 65% or better. Meanwhile, Brooklyn now falls to 11-15-2 against the spread as an underdog for the Nets. Only 2 covers in their last 10 games, booked as a dog. So that was the battle of the greater New York City area. The battle of Los Angeles, late night in LA, the Clippers playing host to the Lakers. Of course, they occupy the same building, the Crypto.com Arena in downtown LA. The Clippers do win by 11 points and cover as a 9.5-point favorite, 127-116. We knew LeBron was not playing in this game, just the third game he has missed this year for the Lakers. But, Donnie, we've said it multiple times. The Clippers were 2 games below 500 at the end of November, 8-10. From that point, since the end of November, LA is 20-4, and they are 22-13 against the number when booked as the favorites.
We're now in that territory here, Ben, for the Los Angeles Clippers. It's not really about the regular season anymore. We've shown that, hey, look, these guys do work, they play well together, and they can win big basketball games. So what's next on the horizon? Having a fantastic regular season? Not so much here. It's just getting to the playoffs and being healthy with your veteran players, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, also at the bench, Russell Westbrook, and Norm Powell, who actually chipped in with 17 points last night. They've been great here in all aspects. So now you're starting to maybe measure these guys down the stretch. And also, if you flip it over to the Los Angeles Lakers, without LeBron James, it's almost like a swan song for them. Like, you know what? That's just a given up night, which again, you can do when your team is 10 to 15 games above 500, give your superstar a rest and say, you know what? If we lose this game, it's not that big of a deal. But when you're the Lakers entering into that game yesterday, Ben, at 22-22, you're 500. LeBron James, a little bit banged up, gets the night off, and you get hammered by 11 points, essentially on your home court. It's not a good look, but this is what we've expected expected here from the Los Angeles Lakers. Their only hope was making the playoffs with everybody healthy. And also, this was supposed to be the season for LeBron James early on. Hey, look, I'm getting older. I'm still a great basketball player, but I have to pace myself this season. And right off the bat, when the Lakers were winning games, they were asking LeBron James, hey, what gives you? He's like, you know what? I'm just fighting father time now. If I got to play 40 minutes every night, we'll see how long this goes. We know how this is going to end up with LeBron James being banged up on a playoff run. It's not going to end kindly for the Lakers.
The Lakers are now 8-10 against the spread, booked as the underdog. And because of the loss straight up, they fall to 22-23, currently in that 9th spot, that 9th overall seed in the Western Conference. They would be in the play-in tournament if the season ended today. It does not, but again, we are past the midway point. The Lakers have played 45 games out of their 82 in the regular season. The Clippers had won 11 straight against the Lakers entering this 2023-24 campaign. The Lakers won each of the first 2 to start this year. The Clippers get the victory last night in game number 3 between these two sides in L.A. Now we go to Indianapolis. The Nuggets on a road trip out in the East and now to the Midwest against the Pacers, and a 114-109 win for the Denver Nuggets, where Nikola Jokic hit the game dagger in that three-pointer with just over 6 seconds remaining in regulation. It was a 2-point game at the time. It extended the lead to 5. It sealed the game for the Nugs. They did not cover by the hook. Closing line was 5.5 points in favor of Denver as a road favorite this year for the Nuggets. Only 6-13 against the spread. But Denver now tied in terms of the overall standings for that top record in the Western Conference.
Yeah, not a great start here to the Pascal Siakam era here in Indiana. Nope. Now, granted, you're still waiting for Tyrese Haliburton to come back and be healthy. There was a chance that we thought he was going to play yesterday in the morning, but later on in the afternoon, it looks like he's probably going to even be out a few more games here. So it certainly doesn't help the Pacers and the pace that they used to play at, which we were routinely seeing games at 150 to 140 with the Indiana Pacers. This one much more measured at 114 to 109. But when you have your superstars on the road, both get you 31 points and a triple-double here by Jokic, you're probably going to win most of those basketball games and also be efficient, Ben, as a team. Going on the road as the Nuggets are entering that game at 13-10 on the road, now improving to 14-10, shooting 50% from the floor, 88% from the free throw line. You have the better superstars. You won that basketball game. That's the way it's supposed to be. 31 wins now in the season for the Denver Nuggets.
Nikola Jokic from the floor last night, 13 of 19. His field goal percentage in the month of January is 71.5%. Speaking of efficient, that 31-point triple-double, it was a plus 165 price we shared with you entering that game. Indiana has lost all 3 games with Pascal Siakam in the lineup currently for the Pacers. They do cover with that hook as the slight home underdog yesterday in Indy. Now 15-10-1 against the spread. So the Denver Nuggets have played 45 games. They are currently tied for the top seed in the Western Conference because they have one more win than both OKC and Minnesota. 30 for the Thunder and the T-Wolves, 31 for the Nuggets. But again, 2 more games than both OKC and Minnesota. So 1 more loss as well for the Nuggets. 14 as compared to the 13 for both the Timberwolves and the Thunder. So OKC and Minnesota, a better winning percentage in the Western Conference, but technically all tied for that top seed. The Clippers only a game and a half back, 28-14, a jumble top of the Western Conference. Speaking of Oklahoma City, at home last night, booked as a large favorite, laying 13.5 against the Portland Trailblazers. A wild and chaotic finish down the stretch. Under the final minute of regulation, Malcolm Brogdon was called for a double dribble. Chauncey Billups, the head coach, of course, for the Trailblazers, hated the call, lost his mind, led to a tech. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander made that technical free throw to tie the game at 109 apiece. And then under 10 ticks remaining in regulation, Jalen Williams hits what would be the game-winning shot for Oklahoma City. They win 111-109 over Portland. The Trailblazers do cover as a large 13.5-point underdog, but reportedly the Portland Trailblazers are going to challenge the result of that game, playing it under protest.
Yeah, by the way, Portland's playing for ping pong balls. They probably shouldn't be upset even if they got shafted yesterday. They'd rather take the loss here. Good win for Oklahoma City. But just getting back from a coaching standpoint, like, understandably, like, we laugh sometimes at post-game press conferences, right, where you really are allowed to get after the refs, you pay the fine, and you move on. But you know what that doesn't do, Ben? It doesn't hurt your team when you yell and scream in the post-game to get your point across. You know what it hurts your team? When you have a 1-point lead and a call doesn't go your way, so you make a mockery there and get double-teched and thrown out of the basketball game, which then you end up losing the game, and then you protest on top of it. Yeah. I watch the play. We see it all the time in sports. It's not the job of the referee to watch a double team and also have an eye on you as the coach trying to run up the half court and get a timeout here. It was a tough call. It didn't go your way, but you can't explode. If you're down 5 points at that point, yeah, get angry, get thrown out, and make a point there. But your team had the lead at that point. You got teched up, probably the reason you lost that game. So tough look for Fisher there. I don't even know why they're heading in and saying, you know what, let's protest this basketball game. Just take the loss. It's what you wanted anyway.
You are right. The Blazers are certainly a team looking forward to their future. Scoot Henderson, leading scorer for Portland last night in Oklahoma City. Of course, he was the 3rd overall pick. He scored 19 points for Portland. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 33 points over his prop of 31.5. Also had 10 dimes, and SGA leads the NBA in steals. He had 5 last night. Now we go out to the Big Easy. The Pelicans booked as a 7-point home favorite against the Utah Jazz. The Jazz entered winners of 12 of their last 16 games, and that including dropping 2 in a row. Make that 3 straight losses for Utah. A big victory for New Orleans last night at home. 153-124. New Orleans covers as a 7-point home favorite. C.J. McCollum, the leading scorer for the Pels. He had 33 points last night. From the NBA ranks to conference action in college basketball. That's next.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a Knicks fan. I feel bad for Obi Toppin. I mean, Obi Toppin was backing up Julius Randle, and then he got his opportunity. Indiana was playing great, didn't play deep, brought him off the bench, and now they got Pascal Siakam, and now he's going into a free agent year. So Obi may be looking for a new home. But I do like that fast break if it's Halliburton with Obi and Siakam.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA. And they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories, but Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
What a Tuesday night slate it was in college basketball. We are now past the January portion of this season, deep into conference action all across the nation. And that included in the SEC. Top 10 Kentucky on the road in Columbia, South Carolina against the Gamecocks. And for a second consecutive year, Lamont Paris and the Cocks get the better of Kentucky. And in dominant fashion last night at home, 79-62. South Carolina wins outright as a 5.5-point underdog. A South Carolina team that is known for defense, a South Carolina team that is known in controlling time of possession and tempo in a basketball game, holds the nation's best scoring offense, a Kentucky team that was averaging north of 90 points per game to its lowest scoring output of this year, only 62 points. As the Gamecocks, Donnie, as an underdog this year, are 7-1 against the spread. They have won outright 6 times, and all four SEC wins for South Carolina this season have come outright as an underdog.
Yeah, and this is the tough part about Kentucky at this point. And again, maybe rising a little bit earlier than we thought. We always knew the talent's going to be there. Calipari always has young talent ready to go. But it's one of those, are they going to be mature enough once the March Madness tournament begins where you can trust them? And as we like to say in the business, they're no longer freshmen. They played 35 games already, home and away, and they've been in all those big atmospheres. But still, you're going to get stung a little bit in early SEC play where it's hard to win here, Ben. 79-62. Do we think it was going to be that big of a blowout? Absolutely not. And quite frankly, probably thought Kentucky would just win this game outright. But you have some of those younger players in the lineup. If you have Wagner, Edwards, and Bradshaw combining for 10 points in the starting lineup, it's not going to be a great night here. And also, the struggles right out of the gate, only scoring 25 points in the first half. Crazy. They scored 37 in the second. But how about South Carolina? Not really the offensive juggernaut, getting 46 points in the second half for an easy victory. I'm not giving up on Kentucky. And quite frankly, we've talked about this before. Houston picked up a win in Provo, which we'll get to a little bit later. Sometimes you like the fact that these teams take these losses early to sort of limit the damage on the overall pricing and also learning a lesson on the road that hopefully down the line they'll say, you know what? Can't have that happen again. I'm not down on Kentucky, but they got blasted by a good South Carolina club last night on the court.
Listen, it is very difficult to win on the road in high conference college basketball, and that's what we are seeing. Kentucky's 2 losses in SEC play, both away from Rupp in Lexington. There is a lot for John Calipari to look at in this team and be excited by, but there's a lot to shore up in mainly on the defensive end of the floor. We talk about this often as we will project out the NCAA tournament when the field of 68 is revealed. We're less than 9 weeks away from Selection Sunday. But to truly cut down the nets in early April, if you were to just look at the Ken Palm metrics, you need to be top 15 in both adjusted offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. Kentucky has it offensively. 4th best offense in the country, top scoring offense in all of college basketball, and yet they rank 98th in terms of defensive efficiency. I'm proud of myself, and I'm not going to pat myself on the back, Donnie, but I've looked at Kentucky throughout this season. They went under in their first 2 games of this campaign. Then they went over in 14 of the last 15, entering last night, over in 8 straight. It has been an auto bet on the over for Kentucky just because of what they do offensively and the pace they play at. And then I dove into the numbers a little bit more. The Gamecocks great as an underdog this year. If they were going to keep the game competitive, the pace would be slow. They have the 15th slowest tempo in all of college basketball. I cashed out the over. I went back and bet the under, and the under of 154.5 comes through last night in Columbia. What a night It is going to be in the SEC on this Wednesday, by the way. So both Kentucky and South Carolina now 4-2 in conference action. We've got a showdown in Tuscaloosa. We had the Red River rivalry yesterday between Texas and Oklahoma on the hardwood. We've got the Iron Bowl on the hardwood tonight in Tuscaloosa. Alabama, a 3.5-point favorite against number 8 Auburn. And as you will see with the odds, the SEC is loaded up front. Auburn, the favorites, plus 115, a perfect 5-0 SEC record so far for Bruce Pearl's Tigers. Tennessee right there, plus 175. Alabama, the only other team, Donnie, with less than a $5 number, plus 470 for Nate Oates and the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, as we like to say, no longer a football conference in the SEC. It is a basketball power here, and you love to see the parity up top. Now, granted, Auburn is 5-0, and they have a big matchup tonight, which handicapping it here. Watch out for the turnovers in this basketball game by the Tide going up against the Tigers tonight. So a little bit of a foreshadowing of what I anticipate from that game happening. But, yeah, I just go back to last night, Kentucky. I look at it as one of those teams, by the time we get to March, I think this team will be rounding into form with the young players. You got Dillingham coming off the bench, not giving up on them in any way, but you love to see the South Carolina Gamecocks when you can measure up against Kentucky and hammer them. That's good things moving forward here. There's a long way to go in SEC play, but it's good to see a lot of teams vying for that top spot here, not just a runaway in the conference.
Those top 3 teams by the odds, by the way, in the SEC, all rank in the top 7 overall for KenPom. And we just talked about the idea you want to be top 10 in every metric, both offensively and defensively. Auburn, 8th best offense, 7th best defense, 15-1 right now for Bruce Pearl's Tigers to win that national championship. An enticing number, to say the least. They certainly look the part of a Final Four team, as does Houston, of course. A huge victory last night on the road in Provo. The Cougs entered with a 16-2 straight-up record. Both of their losses on the road, both in Big 12 play. So a big opportunity booked as a 2.5-point road favorite yesterday against BYU. And that's what the Cougars did. The Cougars of Houston knocking off the Cougars of BYU. 75-68. Kelvin Sampson's team covers as a 2.5-point road favorite.
Yeah, I actually thought the right side in this game was going to be the under here. Now, that didn't turn out to be the factor because of the three-point line. Yeah. We know that BYU loves to shoot the three-point shot, but Houston will let you shoot them, but defends it at a pretty good number. They actually did a good job, Ben. You say, oh, whoa, they made 11 three-point shots, but it was 11 of 38. They held them to 28% from the field from three-point range, which is exactly what I thought. Here's the thing I missed on yesterday, Ben. When you line up these two basketball teams, each one of those teams fouls at a high rate in conference play, but neither one of those teams usually takes advantage of that. You take a look at BYU. They only made 7 free throws, which is about what I anticipated, but 17 free throws made here for the Houston Cougars was the difference. And also, you see that final score, 75-68. You see Houston with a 7-point lead at the break. This game was tied up with a minute and a half left to go in the game, and Houston was able to pull through by making their free throws and playing some defense at the end of the game. I like the way BYU played. Look, they're 2-4 in conference play, and that is a tough conference. There's no shame in losing to Houston. You were right in that ball game at the end, just couldn't make enough shots here at the end of it.
11 of 38 from 3 last night for BYU, a team that takes nearly 52% of their overall shots from the floor from beyond the arc. That is second most in all of college basketball. BYU, before their first Big 12 season, was 12-1 entering conference play. They have now dropped 4 of their 6 games in Big 12 action. Meanwhile, Houston, when you have your 2 veteran guards, the Baylor transfer and L.J. Cryer and Jamal Shedd, who has been there for a very long time, combined for 39 points on the road in Provo, that is always going to be a good recipe for Kelvin Sampson. 23 points, a game high out of L.J. Cryer. So that Red River rivalry last night on the hardwood in Norman, and quite an upset that the Longhorns were able to pull off against OU. Texas booked as a 5.5-point underdog after Rodney Terry's comments about horns down and the handshake line. I thought he was going to be met with a devastating amount of horns down in Norman, and he was. But Texas shows its resolve. They went outright as a 5.5-point underdog, 75-60. The Longhorns now 2-1, both straight up and against the spread, when booked as the underdog this season.
That's a big win. 15 points. It's hard to win on the road, right? And particularly a ranked team in the country when you're unranked and you go in and handle your business by 15 points. You get Max Asmith, the star guard here, 22 points in that game. But here's where you win. You want to go on the road and be grimy. You want to play great defense, but how about this board advantage? 40 rebounds for Texas, 24 rebounds here for Oklahoma. When you control the glass, you can control the game, and that's no better way to do that when going on the road. Give yourself extra opportunities to score. That's exactly what they did, which included 44% from three-point range. That's a great win by Texas, man. 15 on the road against a ranked opponent. That's nice.
The Big 12 Conference is a jumble at this moment. Texas Tech and Kansas State, the only two teams that have just a single loss. But K-State's got to go to Hilton Coliseum tonight to take on Iowa State. Tech has the week off. They'll head to Oklahoma on Saturday. You better believe I'm looking at the Sooners for a bounce-back spot as a short favorite. Oklahoma this year now 3-3, both straight up and against the spread in Big 12 action. Just the second cover for the Longhorns this year in Big 12 play. They had gone over in their first 5 Big 12 games. Last night's total 142.5. Because OU limited to only 60 points, that game stays under. A Big 12 battle to a border battle in the Big 10. When Wisconsin and Minnesota face off as of late in conference action, the game is always close. And last night, that was the case. For the 5th consecutive meeting between the Badgers and the Golden Gophers, the game decided by 6 points or less in the free throw line was key down the stretch. Wisconsin wins its 7th straight game over Minnesota, 61-59 at the Barn. The Gophers do cover as a 3.5-point home underdog, but Wisconsin continues to sit in first place in the Big Ten, now a 7-1 mark for Greg Gard and company in Big Ten action.
Yeah, and a game that you expect to win here when you don't bring your A game by only scoring 61 points here. Now, in the past, that's what Wisconsin does, 61-47. They play great defense. Well, you didn't really have to play great defense from a team that at the charity stripe went 5 for 13, which was the difference here, Ben. 38% on free throws here for the home team, Minnesota Golden Gophers. That's not good enough. And this game stays easily under the total. But in order to win a Big Ten championship, you need some luck along the way. When you don't bring your A game and still come away with the victory, 7-1 now in conference play, Wisconsin will take that. That might be the prettiest win they get all year because you know why? They just won the basketball game, and that's all that matters.
A lot of people look at the way the Badgers play, and they say this is not a good team, not with the likes of Purdue and Illinois atop the Big Ten. That's malarkey. It's hogwash. It's not the correct way to describe a veteran-laden team for Wisconsin, who I would pay attention to as we get closer to March. Minnesota, though, does cover last night at home, 16-3 against the spread. The Gophers are the best cover team in all of men's college basketball at the D1 level. 362 schools play Division I men's college basketball, and Minnesota is the best cover team, 16-3 against the spread. That includes, Donnie, 2 non-covers in their last 4 games. But Wisconsin has covered in 6 of the 8 games they have played in Big Ten action. They went over in 7 of their last 9. Entering last night at the Barn, the game stays well under 138.5. Meanwhile, Purdue, who will battle Wisconsin for that top spot in the Big Ten, routs Michigan at home in West Lafayette. The Boilers win by more than 30 points. Things are bad for the Maize and Blue on the basketball floor. Things could be changing for that football program very soon as well. Speaking of coaching changes, that happened yesterday in Milwaukee at the association level. Was it always in the stars? Donnie Rightside, an astrologer, up next.
quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't
favorite.
care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a Knicks fan. I feel bad for Obi Toppin. I mean, Obi Toppin was backing up Julius Randle, and then he got his opportunity. Indiana was playing great, didn't play D, brought him off the bench, and now they got Pascal Siakam, and now he's going into a free agent year. So Obi may be looking for a new home, but I do like that fast break if it's Halliburton with Obi and Siakam.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA, and they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories. But Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Yo! Oh, maybe Ben is not here. Is he here? Hey. All right.
Who's
now,
Mike Babs?
Can we hear him now? Yeah. Hello, Ben. How you doing over there? Doing good? Hello.
I'm here.
All right. This is the greatest thing ever. Yeah, 2 minutes. There we go. The astrologer. Come on. What are we doing here, BSS? You want me to lead?
I sincerely apologize there. I don't know what happened. Everything was normal. I probably should have checked the clock. That's
this is good.
On me.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I'm a little bit flustered and embarrassed at this moment. So, yeah, that's going to be too much for Donnie Rightside. Anyway, as we look at the situation in Milwaukee as we end out this opening hour, I'm Ben Stevens. He is Donnie Rightside, the Zodiac GM, who studies astrology in terms of head coaching pairings in the NBA with the superstars on that roster. Giannis Antetokounmpo, a Sagittarius. Adrian Griffin is a Cancer in terms of their astrology signs. That's a D-plus energy. And, Donnie, you look at that tweet, you say, okay, he saw the writing on the wall in the last couple of weeks. That's a tweet from the middle of September. He knew that their chakras were not going to match in Milwaukee. The Zodiac GM on the cutting edge of astrology science in the association.
Yeah, we need more astrology also, maybe to pick some football games and some winners here just based on the signs of the two teams heading into it here. But I don't know if that really you want to read into it, but it does look good here, I guess, if the Zodiac GM was like, you know what, this was never going to work, and it didn't work this quickly here. So you got to give him some props. And I guess if we're looking at, what about Doc? Is Doc in there? What's Doc's energy?
Yeah, he is.
Going along with the team here.
A+.
An
A+ pairing.
By the way, Libra is the best, by the way, too. That's what Doc is.
Are you a Libra? DRS?
Yep.
Right. We'll come back for hour number 2 in less than a minute. And I promise I'll pay it.
Be ready.
We'll see you in 55 seconds.